Alrighty, welcome everyone. Thank you for taking the time out to join us today. Hopefully everyone can hear me and this is all working well. My favourite saying, and one that I find myself repeating over and over of late, is through adversity comes opportunity. And boy, haven't we all experienced a great deal of adversity through this pandemic. The impact of COVID-19 on our people and businesses was sudden and immediate, and the future for many remains uncertain. Businesses are in full swing, planning significant changes to keep up with the market changes, changing government policy, the almost inevitable further lockdowns, and of course, our changing financial position that has been hard hit by the year that was 2020. We are reliant on our people to work hard to get us through this and be flexible and understanding, despite being stood down on JobKeeper and moved to different hours and different jobs just to keep the business moving. And for the most part, haven't they been great? Most have ridden the wave with you and stuck by the company. But as we emerge from this pandemic and new opportunities are born within markets, with new businesses being created almost overnight, it seems, and confidence and competition seems to be building again, you must now give back to those who stood by you and remained flexible. For many, the next opportunity to do this is at the performance review time. It's an opportunity after so much adversity to listen, to recognise, to reward in whatever way possible, to retain your most valuable assets. Today, we'll be focusing on the online performance review module, or OPR, as you might hear us refer to it. We will discuss why you need it now more than ever. We'll also give you a demonstration of how enableHR administrators can set up the OPR module and get ready to launch. Today's webinar is powered by HR Assured and supported by enableHR. Both are companies within FCB Group. Together, we help businesses around Australia and New Zealand navigate the complex employment laws by providing a range of services and products to ensure businesses are compliant. Before we dive in, my name is Nicole Vecito and I am a Senior Workplace Relations Consultant with FCB Workplace Law, and lucky enough to also have been part of the HR Assured team in recent years. I have almost 20 years experience in HR management with a range of businesses, including large global corporates such as BP and General Motors, and with companies on the smaller end or medium size, such as Baker's Delight, the franchisor, where I had the wonderful opportunity to work with both the head office, but also their smaller franchisees. I can appreciate that not everyone aspires to a performance management process or system that is as complex as those of the larger organisations. And so I'm going to make some suggestions today that should assist you to adopt a simple yet effective performance management system and process. I have a degree in psychology and I'm currently completing my law degree. I'm really passionate about performance management and helping employers get it right through the review processes, both to minimise legal risks, but also to help employers and employees achieve their performance potential. But performance management is tricky. It's so much more than just a process. There's people and behaviours and career aspirations and development stuff all to consider. We're going to talk about some of this today, and Judith is going to show you through the OPR system and suggest ways that you might like to set this up to suit your business, leaving you with the confidence that the process is set up and automated and you to spend your time supporting the business with all that people stuff. Over to you, Judith.
Thanks, Nicole. Hi, everyone. Once again, my name is Judith, and I'm one of the client success officers here at HR Assured and enableHR. I have been with HR Assured for almost 2 years now, and I love working with clients across all industries and all sizes. I love technology, and I'm passionate about conveying technical information in a straightforward and usable format to all our clients. It will also be a good idea if you can actually open up your account while we are doing the demonstration later on, just so you can follow us while we are walking through the system. So for today, we have set aside 60 minutes for this webinar. And if you do have any questions along the way, feel free to type them into the webinar chat box. There should be like a Q&A section for you to do that, including your own name and the company name. So just in case if we can't cover all of the questions later on, we will be in contact with you directly to discuss about them. Okay, Nicole, can you talk us about why we should be doing performance review?
Sure, thanks, Judith. HR Director magazine reports that a Gartner survey found that only 73% of organisations will be going ahead with performance reviews this year, in part because they accept that many employees will not have achieved their 2020 targets as a result of the pandemic. Is this logical or naive? Is performance management just about measuring results? Let's talk this through. Performance management doesn't need to be complex to be effective. In fact, quite the opposite is true. It needs to be simple to be effective. I'm on the wrong slide, apologies. Some businesses will not do performance reviews this year, and some generally don't do it or don't do it formally anyway. This is not a criticism. It requires an investment of time, and for some, it might feel like you're opening a can of worms, problems that you know or suspect might exist, but don't feel equipped to deal with just yet. There's many reasons why employers don't do cyclical performance reviews, including the obvious. They're time poor. It is an investment in time. I can tell you firsthand, although we do performance reviews at FCB, of course, mine was scheduled earlier this year, and I think it occurred 1 or 2 months later, but it happened. Another reason are that these discussions can be difficult, and sometimes our leaders don't feel capable or confident in having difficult discussions. It can sometimes be viewed as an administrative task. At the end of the day, sometimes it's that static document that comes out of it. That's the output that we see, and nothing comes of that. It can be seen as adding no value. There are things that we need to assess in terms of performance that are not as measurable as we'd like them to be, or sometimes it takes a lot of time and input to obtain measurable results to assess that performance. Sometimes companies have limited career options. Some of our smaller businesses that are with us today might be able to resonate if they have just a number of positions in their business, and people are very much pigeonholed into the positions that they're doing. Some managers just purely like to give on-the-spot feedback and feel that that's enough to keep their employees going and motivated and engaged and doing what they really want them to be doing. Others like to rely on KPIs alone. And one thing I want to talk about on the next slide is the fact that performance management is not just about results. So I'll challenge you on that. Sorry, Judith, not quite ready for that slide yet. So I'll challenge you on that thinking a little bit. Performance management or performance is not just about results, it's also about behaviours that go along with it. Another reason for avoiding performance management reviews is that inevitable expectation that employees might have of a salary increase that comes about from that performance review if they've done a great job. But let me tell you, there's a number of things, and some of these you'll already know, so apologies for those who I'm sort of telling things that they might already know, but let's reflect on some of these anyway. There's a number of things that you'll get out of a performance review process beyond just the mere tick and flick of whether or not employees have achieved those performance goals that were set. The first and probably most important is engagement. Employees look forward to performance reviews. It gives them that one-on-one attention with their leader, and sometimes that leader is their role model. It gives them acknowledgement, which can for many people, be a real career driver. It's all they need to feel satisfied in their roles. And that intangible feel-good feeling that people get from receiving feedback and acknowledgement and recognition of their effort and not just their results. One of the other things that you might find through doing performance reviews is that you can identify flight risks before they even arise. And for some, that can be really critical. You might identify that someone's genuinely not happy. You learn that what they're expecting in their role or what they'd like to achieve or where they'd like their career to go is just not going to be fulfilled, or so they think, in their current role. And this is all really informative for your decision making as businesses. From this also comes the opportunities to succession plan. So for our smaller organisations, succession planning might be something that you have not yet touched on. And for those who don't know what succession planning is, let me give you a little brief summary. Succession planning is where we identify who internally might be suitable for roles within the business. Typically, we pick those critical roles that are necessary for the business to achieve its broader strategic goals. Sometimes these are senior sales positions, sometimes they're business development positions, sometimes they're marketing or HR, depending on what the business strategy is. You'll be able to identify what are those critical roles that you need for the next 12 months, 3 years, 5 years. By undertaking performance reviews, you can start to have the conversations and think about who might be appropriate for these roles. We know such and such is not going to stay in this role forever. So who have we got internally that we can start developing for that role now? Of course, you'll learn about people's career aspirations, and this will only feed into your succession planning. It'll help you do sometimes only little things to help people stay engaged and see their future with your organisation. It'll also help you identify development gaps, and I'm going to talk about that a little further in a moment. But that includes both on an individual level, but also across the organisation as a whole. Gives you a chance to identify those barriers to performance. So what's preventing people from performing? It could be something as somewhat little as communication issues. It could be that a process or a system's not working properly. Things that you could perhaps easily eliminate or manage in order to enable that person to perform. Of course, it helps to minimise legal risks, and your notes taken throughout the performance review process are often critical when legal situations arise. It also helps you to set goals and align those goals with business priorities. Having worked at BP, as I mentioned, which is an enormous organisation, you can imagine that in order to have that ship going in the right direction, it needed everyone to be having goals that were aligned in that same direction. Otherwise, it was difficult. So the same goes for small, medium, large size organisations. Everyone needs to be facing and moving in the same direction in order to get where you need to go. Performance reviews also give individuals that recognition for their, not always results, but also their efforts, and change happens. You know, I'm sure many of you are going through changes this year following the pandemic year last year, making changes so that you're ready to deal with this if it arises again in the future, or changing direction, or taking advantage of new market opportunities. And so this helps you make sure that all your employees are again focusing on those new business goals and new direction. I'll leave you with this one thought, which you can see down the bottom there. If you were to invest 30 to 50% of your own salary in shares or some form of investment, wouldn't you want to know if it's performing well now, but also if it's going to continue to perform well in the future? Performance management is similar in this regard, in that labour costs almost account for up to 50% or more in some cases of a business's expenses. So you really want to know not just whether or not people have achieved what you wanted them to in the past, but are they going to be able to achieve what you want them to achieve in the future? I'll jump onto the next slide now. Thanks, Judith. So, as I was saying earlier, it doesn't need to be complex to be effective. In fact, quite the opposite is true. It needs to be simple to be effective. It's a cycle that starts with goals, aspirations. It starts with your leaders giving team members guidance and directions. And you might be at any one of these stages. However, I'll preface that by saying that if you haven't got a plan for goals at an individual level, be somewhat cautious if you're going to assess performance before you have a plan. So the first stage being plan, obviously you do want to set some SMART goals. I'm sure that's terminology that you're all familiar with, and we'll cover that off very briefly later on. But I'd also encourage you all to consider including in that plan your values and behaviours. So I mentioned earlier that performance is not just about results and what you want to achieve. It's also about how you want people to achieve it. Many of you might already have values and behaviours in place, or a code of conduct that guides employees' behaviour. But this should not just be a compliance tool. If I was to say, don't think about the elephant with the green hat, don't think about the elephant with the green hat and the red scarf, what are you doing? You're thinking about it. So a bit like our children in some ways, telling people what not to do is helpful, and in some respects that's what our code of conduct often does. What we want to do is help employees to understand how we want them to go about achieving those results by really outlining for them what our values and behaviours are. So I'd really encourage you, if you don't already, to somehow start to integrate those values and behaviours into the performance plan this coming year. The next step is development. Now, you might skip this step if this is the first time that you're going to put in place a cyclical performance review process. It's difficult to identify what you should be developing if you haven't sort of been through a review process. So it's okay to skip this step, but in future, this is something that's going to add a great deal of value to the organisation once you understand where your gaps are. And think strategically. With this performance, online performance review module that Judith's going to take you through, you'll see some fantastic, or Judith might talk about some fantastic reporting capability. This gives you the opportunity not just to look at an individual level, but to look across the organisation as a whole. You might have already identified what capabilities you need as a business to achieve your strategic business objectives. And through this process, you might identify as a whole across the organisation where some gaps might be in fulfilling those capabilities that you need. This is an opportunity to be strategic and essentially direct any L&D or training budget that you may have into those areas that are really going to count and add value, not just to the individual, but to the business as well. The next step in the process is the review process. This is not the end of year assessment. This is a check-in with employees, see whether they're on track. Again, to opportunity to identify any barriers to their performance. That might be, as I said, small things, systems, people, processes are not working and they can't achieve what they want to achieve. It might also be resetting those goals. If your business is going through change, you might also need to change those goals that you've established at the start of the performance year to new goals to make sure that, again, everyone's moving in the right direction. The other thing that the review review step is important for is to make sure that there's no surprises come that final end of performance year review. This is about managing risk, and you know, is a really important step in, again, collecting those notes that can be critical should performance or legal risks arise. I mentioned just now that businesses change, there's new business opportunities present themselves, and they don't always do that at the beginning of, you know, conveniently at the beginning of your performance year. So they will happen throughout, and you want to be able to jump on those opportunities when they arise. So too, you need to adjust the goals of employees. Similarly, if you have employees changing positions, new people coming on board, there's no need to wait till, you know, the start of the performance year again to set goals with those people. You can do that in the middle of the year or whenever that occurs, and this is an opportunity to do that at that review step. The next step is the review, the final year review, and this is obviously where you'll be reviewing performance against the goals that you set at the beginning of the year. For those that have or intend to integrate their values and behaviours, it's a chance to assess whether or not people are demonstrating those values and behaviours, and it may be a chance to rate overall performance. And again, I just want to caution you by saying that if performance reviews or cyclical performance reviews are new to your business, this is probably something that you might decide to hold off on to later years. Or likewise, if you have been using a paper-based system or some other form of system and you're going to move on to using your HR Assured OPR module, you know, that involves a bit of change, not just in implementing the system, but it also involves a bit of change for employees and managers to become familiar and comfortable with. Sometimes performance ratings might not be appropriate for those reasons, and perhaps because of the year that 2020 was. So I just want to say it's okay to leave that out if you feel like your people or your business is not ready, and bring that in at a later time when it's more appropriate. In reviewing employees' performance, there's a number of things that you might do. I know we talk about SMART goals, which are measurable. Values and behaviours can be very difficult to measure. They can be subjective. There's a number of things that you can do that will add value to this step in the process. You might consider some formal or informal 360-degree feedback processes. Sometimes that could involve speaking with external people. It could be speaking to your suppliers or your customers to understand how their experience was with your teams and individuals within those teams. This can be really important both from a employee perspective and a business perspective. On one hand, it may provide feedback that sort of reinforces the way that your team goes about business on your behalf and represents you as a business. On the other hand, it could be a great opportunity to identify some risks to the business and barriers to performance. I would say to line managers, when helping them become better leaders, this process is about listening. So if you don't mind me saying, shut up and listen, listen, listen. Employees should do about 70% of the talking within a performance review process. And by enabling your employees to drive their own performance discussions, you're empowering them, you're encouraging them to commit to their performance goals and take accountability for their performance outcomes. And with that will come greater engagement. The final point I want to make on this slide is that, I mentioned earlier that performance review processes are a great opportunity to recognise and reward employees. We can do this in simple ways. It doesn't need to be financial. Throughout the actual conversation, I'd encourage you to listen, acknowledge, summarise, and inquire, ask questions. And this will inevitably give your employees the perception that you care and you're listening, and what they have to say is important. And that's going to be very powerful for both them and the way forward. In terms of reward, we've heard a lot about flexibility post-COVID, and this is certainly something that's trending to varying degrees and possible to varying degrees for organisations depending on their operations, but perhaps something to consider this time round, and whether or not that's something of a reward or benefit that might be offered to employees into the future and following this cyclical process this year. So my main message there is keep it simple and do lots of listening. Jump onto the next slide. Thanks, Judith. So if I haven't convinced you already, and you are needing to build a business case for your organisation to implement this module, if you're not already using it, I'd encourage you to think commercially and do your own return on investment calculation. A return on investment is essentially looking at the end value of having something in place and deducting from that the initial investment that you might need to make in order to get there. It's a measure of financial gain or loss, and I'm confident in all of your cases it will be a case of financial gain. You could go further and look at the internal rate of return and all those sorts of things, but we won't go into that today. So some of the things that you might incorporate in that return on investment calculation, obviously your time and cost savings. Time equals money, your labour cost that it takes to go through your current processes. How long does it take you to send out all those emails and get them back and file them electronically or as hard copy versions? How long does it take your managers to write or type their notes and send them out to employees and back to HR or to whoever's doing the filing? Versus the time and cost that it's going to take to implement this module. Judith's going to take you through some really simple steps to make that happen, and hopefully you'll feel confident at the end of that it's achievable and not going to come at a great cost. Ultimately, you'll end up with a fully automated system, and a lot of those administration costs that you might once have had year on year will be far less for you. I mentioned earlier that the reporting is fantastic within our system. We really do take a lot of pride in that. And this is something that you should really get into and have a look what it can do. Think about it when you're setting up your performance management or performance review form and goals and things like that. Think about what kind of information do you want to get out of the system in the form of reports when you're setting up those initial performance review templates. The information that you could get is only really limited by your own creativity. Some of the things that you might like to know are what percentage of people are underperforming, and you might achieve this by using some performance ratings, or what percentage of people are top talent that are exceeding your expectations. And interestingly, where are these results coming from? Is it the same managers reporting the same people all as exceeding expectations or underperforming? That might give you some clues as to whether or not you need to do some work with your leaders. It could also give you, as I mentioned earlier, some really valuable information on your organisational capability gaps. I've got an example here. Let's say your business is going to take advantage of this, shift to, digital, whatever it may be, digital retail or e-commerce, and you notice that all of your employees are really great at in-person sales. They might be great presenters, but maybe you don't have as much capability as you need in your SEO and digital marketing and those types of capabilities that you're going to need to achieve your business strategy. So you could get some really handy information about your capability across the business from some of these reports. And ultimately, this should really guide where you're going to spend your training budget. So I mentioned that the process was automated. This results in consistency and transparency. And from an employee perspective, this means that everyone's treated the same, and that perception of fairness is really important. There's also a cost that comes with risk, or potential cost, I should say. So having your process online means that you will have notes in real time that you can access. They may become very important down the track in managing any legal risks or performance risks that arise. So I mentioned that your HRA Cloud module is available 24/7 from any device. You can sit on the couch with a glass of wine of night time and review your employees' performance. We do offer a best practice framework. We've had a number of people with varying experiences have input into the setup of this framework for you. So it provides you with a lot of guidance. But having said that, it's yours to design as you see fit. You can use your own language, set it up in a way that's customized to your business. And finally, and importantly, from an administrative perspective, it integrates with your HRA Cloud. So there's one source of truth for your employee records and no need to be setting up new employees in this system all the time. So hopefully I've convinced you that it's the right way to go and given you some insight into some of the other benefits that you might get out of it. And I'll hand over to Judith.
Thanks, Nicole. Okay, so now we are ready to launch the online performance review. So like with any software, the process of launching new technology does require investment of time upfront. However, once launched, you will then reap the reward of this investment. So we will show you as the administrators how you can actually complete this setup process and launch your OPR module across your entire organization. So for our online performance review module, this is powered by our employee self-service portal, meaning that both the employees and the managers, they will log into their own self-service portal to complete their appraisals. And once the setup of the performance review process is complete, then what we will need to make sure is that we do have an email address against each of these employee records, then you will be ready. So don't worry if you haven't got your employees registered for the self-service yet, because when you launch the performance review checklist, the system will also be able to automatically get the employees who haven't registered yet to register for the self-service. Then they will also be prompted to complete the performance review in their self-service portal. Okay, so as we mentioned earlier, each organization conducts performance reviews in a different way. So while we will guide you through the best practice standard using the HRA Cloud system, it's also important to remember that one size does not fit all. And you will be pleased to know that our system is flexible enough to cater your unique needs. So our clients tend to use this performance review module in a range of different ways. For example, you can utilize the key result areas only, or you can also just use it to track the objectives, or you can do a mix of both. Similar to what you actually access. So you can assess the performance only, or you can use it to gain feedback from your employee. And once again, feel free to do both. And you can use the online performance review process to do it on a scheduled basis, or this can also be on ad hoc. And for our online performance review process, we can also launch it individually as well as in group. And there's also many flexibilities that comes into hand in terms of the key result areas. And you can also build, create different groups for the different position titles that you have in the organization. And you can also pick up the HR notes throughout the performance review period when you are managing the employees on a day-to-day basis.
And can I just add, Judith, don't forget
sure.
to add in your values and behaviours, or how you expect employees to conduct themselves in trying to achieve those goals. This could be as simple as adding an objective, which allows the employee and manager to review whether the employee, for example, acted with integrity or took initiative to solve problems.
Yeah, perfect. So now I will just quickly talk about the process of setting this up in your account. So we will cover each of these from the system administrator perspective to clarify the setup, management, and reporting for the performance review module. And we find the most that our clients drive and measure the performance by job position. So this ensures consistency of key performance indicators across all employees who have the same job position, in saying that you also have the ability to tailor performance measures according to specific individual as well. So as the account admin or the HR admin user of the system, you will first do step 1 and step 2. So first of all, you would define what are the key result areas that you would like to review for your employees. And then you will also determine the rating scales. After that, you can then group these key result areas, maybe based on the job position titles, or it can once again be based on the departments. Once we have all these set up, then we can assign the key result areas that we would like to review to the employees. So this can be done individually or in bulk. After that, it's totally up to you whether you would like your line managers to initiate the performance review process, or you can leave yourself as the central person to initiate and coordinate this. And for step 4 and 5, these will be for the managers and employees to complete. This is where both managers and the employees will complete their individual appraisals first and meet up for the final results. And at the end of the process, the manager will also have the opportunity to update the details of any existing objectives and also to enter new objectives. And when the performance review process is finalized for the entire organization, that's when you can run reports and check up and also do some final checks in regarding to any of the incomplete performance reviews. Okay, so in the HRA Cloud system, there are 2 processes that we have built in for the performance review. So in terms of the experience for your managers and employees, the process will be pretty much the same between the standard and flexible performance review, where the employees and the managers will provide the employee appraisals and self-appraisals. The notable difference will be the flexibility that comes into play. So once the initial appraisal has been completed by both the employee and the manager, the flexible checklist or the new checklist that we have called it will allow the managers to first review the initial comments and ratings from the employee. It will also allow managers to take any adjustments to the initial assessment as required. Other than this, both processes still go through the same initial and final appraisal, meeting between the manager and the employee, then the submission of any objectives for the next period. In the demonstration later on, we will cover the setup for the standard online performance review process. Okay, so I will just quickly move on to the next slide. So in terms of assessors, our system also allows you to have more than one assessor. So you can invite an additional assessor to provide their feedback on the employee performance as well. So this will be very handy when let's say an employee who has 2 managers, or if you would like to include a peer review for this employee.
In my experience, Judith, this is one of the features that many online performance review systems lack, and it's so handy. You may have people who have hybrid roles or wear several hats. Smaller businesses often have roles that are much broader than larger organisations, which tend to have much narrower or specialist roles. At FCB, we have support roles that support the law partners, but they're also part of a centralised support team that work on other projects together. So having two assessors can be really handy in getting a holistic review of their performance.
Yep,
just a couple of points. Yeah, thanks, Judith. Just a couple of points on this slide. I just wanted to cover this off in case anyone wasn't familiar with this acronym. This is how we would encourage you to go about setting goals. Be really specific with what it is that you're trying to achieve. Make sure that it is measurable, and that might not be a tangible number. There might be certain descriptions as to, the level of competence, for example, or the level of achievement that someone might have achieved against a certain goal. It doesn't have to be numerical. It could be a rating scale. Also achievable. We need to be realistic. We know what COVID brought us last year was a lot of the unexpected. So I would probably now more than ever encourage you to be really realistic about what can be achieved this year, and hopefully employees going out on a high with a good year. And time-based. Your performance cycle might be a year, but some of these goals might be shorter term. So you might use your sort of mid-year performance review or progress review to check in and see if these goals are being met by that time. Thanks, Judith.
Yep. So in HRA Cloud or enableHR, these professional objectives and development needs can be identified during a performance review period or at any stage during the employee's life cycle. So the objectives can be created and managed in a range of different ways. So these can be entered during the performance review process at the end when the primary assessor is entering the final ratings, or the employees, they can submit their objectives via their self-service portal, or as the HR admin or the account admin of your HRA Cloud account, you can also submit these professional objectives from the employee record directly. And we will also quickly cover this once we have logged into the system. So for today, we will use Jude as an example. So she is the human resource team lead for this company that's called Perfect Groom Group. It's a pet supplies and grooming company. So she will be responsible for setting up and managing the performance review for the company. So now let us log in as Jude and have a look of how we can get this set up for her. Okay, so I will just quickly log into my system, just bear with me. All right, so now we have logged in as Jude into her end of the HRA Cloud as an admin user. So first of all, when we are setting up the performance review, we'll first need to go to the setting button on the top right corner. So once you click on it, then you will be able to locate that there's an option for performance review. And this is how you can get to your performance review administration page. So over here, usually we'll recommend you to first start off with the rating scales that you would like to use. So our system comes with the standard 5-point rating scale. And I think many users, they just stick with this one. And we do have the flexibility of creating your own rating scale as well. So now I will just quickly show you how you can actually create a new rating scale. So let's say in today's case, I would like to create a rating scale for competency. So let me just quickly put that in. So for the code that we have here, this is usually used for import when you need to bulk assign this rating scale to a key result area, then that's when the code will come into handy. I'll just quickly enter the details here. And you can add in more scores or remove them as you like. Okay, so once we have created the rating scales, then we can then go ahead and determine the key result areas that we would like to refer to or review for the employees. So once we click on the key result area tab, you can then see that our system has already built in many key results areas that is ready to use. So feel free to utilize these if they work for you. Otherwise, once again, you can build up your own new key result areas. So I will just quickly show you how you can do that. So once you click on the new key result area button, then you will be populated with this form. So once again, the code will be used when you are running an import to bulk assign this out later on. So I will just quickly put in that as well. And it can be the same as the key results area title. And if you do wish the key result areas to be launched in a specific way, then you can also number them or order them alphabetically, like what I've done here as an example. And for this one, I will just probably put it as the 6th one. Okay. All right, and let me just quickly put in the description as well. And once you enter the description, you can see that there's actually an option for you to select whether you would like the comments to be compulsory. So yeah, if you do wish both the assessors and the assessees to enter their comment when they're reviewing for this particular key result area, then you can have this option ticked. And rating scale can be optional. So if you don't wish to include a rating scale, that's totally fine. And you can also include the option and not applicable as well. So that's totally up to you. I'll just quickly put something in my KPI field as well. And now I can click on create. So once you have all the key results areas set up, then now we can move on to grouping them. So after I click on the grouping tab, then you can see that I have already created a few key result area group based on the job positions. And now I will just quickly create a key result area group for business managers. So let me just quickly do that. So once I click on grouping, again, you will get the code for import purposes. And then I will just quickly name this as the business development manager group. And to assign key result areas to a particular group is quite straightforward as well. So you will just need to pick and select which are the ones that you would like to include for this particular role. And then we can click on create. Okay, so this is the setup as the account admin that you will need to do. And after we have done that, then we can go ahead and assign the key result areas or the key result area groups to our employee records. So now I will just quickly go to an employee record. Okay, so I will just use the first employee here as an example. So once I click on Angela's employee file, then you should be able to locate that there's a tab for performance review. So once I click on it, then I can go to the key result area tab that I have here and then assign her with a key result area group, or I can assign her with individual key result areas. So in today's case, I will just quickly click on assigning a key result area group out. And because Angela is a business development manager, so I will just assign her with the key result area group that I've just set up for business development manager. Okay, perfect. So now you can see that once I've assigned the group out, all of the key result areas that I have set up for this particular group has been assigned to Angela. And now let's quickly talk about our objectives and development tab as well. So for our objectives and development tab, it works hand in hand with the performance review checklist, what happened is when the, let's say the commencement date or the due date is fall under the performance period that you are reviewing for, then the system will be able to include this objective into the performance review process as well. So the managers and the employees, they can review the status of this current objective, and then they will also have the opportunity to update the details as well. So there's another way that we can assign the key result areas to the employees. This is achieved by running an import. So we won't go into detail today of the import. I will just quickly show you where you can locate it. So on the top right corner, if you click on actions and then go to integrations, then this is a page that you can set up a integration, or you can run imports. So we do have an importer for performance reviews. I will just quickly click on it just so you can have a look. So over here, there are 3 imports in total that you can do. So for example, for the first import that you can do is to bulk us creating the key result areas. And then the next one you can do is to assign individual key result areas to your employees. And the last one that we've got is for you to assign key result area groups to your employees. So feel free to just download the relevant spreadsheet and then upload it here. Then the system will be able to do the job for you. Okay, so now let us quickly go back and we can now initiate the actual performance review process. So once again, there are 2 ways that we can initiate this process. The first way is to launch it individually for each individual employee, or we can also run a bulk launch. So now I will just quickly show you how we can initiate this process individually for an employee. So once I click on the employee management button, then you can select the relevant performance review checklist. As we mentioned before, we have 2 in the system. First one is the standard one, and while the second one will be the new one with the more flexible process. So for today, I will just quickly use the standard one. And then I will just select the first option to initiate a brand new performance review checklist. And I will just use Angela as an example again. So now we are at the actual online performance review checklist. So over here, first of all, the system will ask you to set up the performance period. After you have set it up, then you can also nominate who is the primary assessor. So for the primary assessor, if you do have organizational charts set up, then the system will be smart enough to nominate their direct reports, the direct manager, to be the primary assessor. And the employee will be selected automatically straight away. And over here, you can also see that there's the option for us to add in an additional assessor. So this is where you can actually add in like that additional manager or that peer that you would like them to participate during this performance review process. And after that, after filling in all of those details, then this step to initiate the performance review process will then be unlocked for you to complete, for the managers and the employees to complete. So because we don't have too much time left, but I have actually initiated a process for another employees already. So I will just quickly show you what we do after that. Okay, so let me just quickly launch the one that I've already done for an employee. Okay, so this is another employee performance review that I've already finalized with the process. So what happened is once we have launched the checklist, then this step, the primary assessor step and the employee step will tell you about what status they at for the performance review. And once they have completed them, then you will be able to see that now the system is showing that this status for the primary assessor and then for the employees, they are both complete. So after both of them has finalized their performance reviews, then the rest of the steps will be for us as the HR admin or the managers to complete. So over here, you can then determine will the employee receive a promotion or whether they will get an increase in their salary or wage. And the system will also be able to prompt you to create the relevant letter to inform them about their employment change. And Nicole, can you actually tell us what should we do in the situation where we have identified some performance issues?
You mean throughout the review process?
Yes.
I think that, I think that the important thing here is that if you're identifying performance issues in that review process, I'd caution you against jumping straight into any kind of disciplinary process. The best thing to do would be to create a plan with that employee that's specific around addressing those particular performance issues.
Yep, perfect. And yeah, over here, what you can see is that if there's some performance actions that need to be taken after this, then our system will also prompt you to generate the relevant letter to advise about those specific tasks, actions, or plans. Okay, so once you have created the relevant letters, then you're pretty much done with the checklist, and then you can go ahead and complete it. Okay, so I will just quickly talk about the reports that we have for online performance review in the system. So you will just need to go to the reporting page on the left-hand side. So once we click on it, then there will be a group of reports that you can pull based on online performance review. So I will just quickly expand this section. And over here, you can see that there are definitely multiple reports that you can pull. So some important ones that we would like to point out will be the performance review submit date by report. So this will be a very handy report for you to track the progress of any current ongoing performance reviews. So we'll just quickly generate one just so you can have a look how this one will look like. So over here, you can see that it will list out the employee's name and then tell you that when they have submitted the performance review. And it will also tell you as the assessor, when has the assessor has submitted the review. Yeah, so there are a few reports that you can pull. So feel free to explore these based on your own preference. And some other helpful ones that I will quickly like to point out will be the rating variance report. This will be a very helpful report for you to compare like with the same key result areas assigned, what are the feedbacks that you get from different employees? And this will be the report that will give you that comparison. All right, so I think those are the main things that we need to do when we are setting up the online performance review module for the HRA Cloud and also launching it. So now we will just quickly leave some time for you to put in any of your questions, just so we can answer them live while we're still here.
Judith, I think the first question is for you. It is, in the past, I've created my own KRA, just as you've demonstrated, and used numbering to order them, but it couldn't cope with 10. I think it positioned 10 straight after 1. Is this still the case?
Oh, this is actually a very good question. And I believe this has already been solved by our development team because we have received this feedback already. So this is something that has already been resolved. Yep, and feel free to keep typing your questions while we're still here. Okay, looks like we don't have any further question coming through. So let's just quickly wrap up today's section. So so other than reaching to the
Sorry, Judith, we've got one more question. How does the HR admin get prompted regarding HR actions following the review?
Okay, yeah, that's actually another good question. So what happened is we do have a user role that is called OPR notification. So you can assign yourself with this particular user role. So once you assign yourself with it, when the managers and employees, they have finalized with the actual performance review, the system will be able to send you a notification to prompt you to finalize with the last section of the checklist. Okay, thank you.
We've got lots of questions coming through around,
okay.
Can we get the presentation slide? And the answer to that is yes. We're going to send it out to everyone who's attended or unable to attend and asked us to send it to them. So keep an eye on the inbox. We'll send it out.
Okay, yeah, perfect. And yeah, feel free to keep answering your questions. And yeah, if we can't cover them today, we'll reach out to you directly just so we can discuss that after this. And yeah, don't forget to check out our knowledge base as well, because over there we do have more than hundreds of articles that will also guide you on how to use the system.
Kirsten, I'll get Judith to get in contact with you around that query about the 10 that's not working for you. Might be one easier to do sort of one-on-one.
Okay, yep, sure. Yeah, we can definitely contact you directly in relation to that. All right, guys, thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and have a great day. And thanks, Nicole, for joining as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Judith.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everyone.